Hello. Chapter 3. So yesterday we have discovered that Artemis has successfully started to translate the Book of the People, which means people with a capital P, so referring to the fairies. Chapter 3. Holly. Holly Short was lying in bed having a silent fume. The fume here means that she's feeling really angry about something. Often you would hear it, someone would say, oh, I'm fuming about, the trains being late. So she's having a fume. Nothing unusual about this. Leprechauns in general were not known for their geniality. Geniality meaning their sort of calm, friendly composure. But Holly was in an exceptionally bad mood, even for a fairy. Technically, she was an elf, fairy being a general term. And she was a leprechaun too. But that was just a job. Okay, so in the world of Artemis Fowl, fairies encompass different types of I don't want to say creature. I mean, creature sounds a little disparaging, doesn't it? Being. Let's go with being, different types of beings. So she's a fairy, but she's also an elf and a leprechaun. Perhaps a description would be more helpful than a lecture on fairy genealogy. Holly Short had nut brown skin, cropped auburn hair, and hazel eyes. Her nose had a hook, and her mouth was plump and cherubic, meaning like a baby, which was appropriate considering that Cupid was her great-grandfather. Her mother was a European elf with a fiery temper and a willowy figure, slim figure, like a willow tree. Holly too had a slim frame with long tapered fingers, perfect for wrapping around a buzz baton. I'm not sure what a buzz baton is, so we shall find out. Her ears, of course, were pointed at exactly 1 meter in height. Holly was only a centimetre below the fairy average, but even 1 centimetre can make an awful lot of difference when you don't have many to spare. Commander Root was the cause of Holly's distress. Root had been on Holly's case since day one. The commander had decided to take offence at the fact that the first female officer in Recon's history had been assigned to his squad. Recon was a notoriously dangerous posting with a high fatality rate, meaning lots of people ended up being killed doing it. And Root didn't think it was any place for a girlie. Well, he was just going to have to get used to the idea because Holly Short had no intention of quitting for him or anybody else. Though she'd never admit it, another possible cause for Holly's irritability was the ritual, with a capital R. She'd been meaning to perform it for several moons now, but somehow there just never seemed to be time. And if Root found out she was running low on magic, she'd be transferred to traffic for sure. Holly rolled off her futon and stumbled into the shower. That was one advantage of living near the Earth's core. The water was always hot. No natural light, of course, but that was a small price to pay for privacy. Underground. The last human-free zone. There was nothing like coming home after a long day on the job, switching off your shield, and sinking into a bubbling slime pool. Oh, bliss. The fairy suited up, zipping the dull green jumpsuit up to her chin and strapping on her helmet. Leprechaun uniforms. I could show you how that's spelled because she's got this posting. We're all, it's a little bit confusing at the moment because we're suddenly in the world of the fairies underground. So there's a whole new language to sort of get used to. but she's in something called recon. She's been posted. She's got a job with recon, okay, which is very, very dangerous. And her uniform, the recon uniform, but instead of saying recon uniform, it's leprechaun uniform. The uniforms were very smart these days, not like that top of the morning costume the Force had to wear back in the old days. Buckled shoes and knickerbockers. Honestly, no wonder leprechauns were such ridiculous figures in human folklore. Still, probably better that way. If the mud people knew that the word leprechaun actually originated from LEP recon, lep recon, an elite branch of the lower elements police, they'd probably take steps to stamp them out. Better to stay inconspicuous and let the humans have their stereotypes. With the moon already rising on the surface, there was no time for a proper breakfast. Holly grabbed the remains of a nettle smoothie from the cooler and drank it in the tunnels. As usual, there was chaos in the main thoroughfare, the main street. Airborne sprites jammed the avenue like stones in a bottle. The gnomes weren't helping either, lumbering along with their big swinging behinds blocking 2 lanes. Swear-toads infested every damp patch, cursing like sailors. That particular breed began as a joke, but had multiplied into an epidemic. Someone lost their wand over that one. Holly battled through the crowds to the police station. There was already a riot outside Spud Emporium. LEP Corporal Newt was trying to sort it out. Good luck to him. Nightmare. At least Holly got the chance to work above ground. The LEP station doors were crammed with protesters. The Goblin and Dwarf turf war. A turf war is a war over territory, over land. The Goblin-Dwarf turf war had flared up again, and every morning hordes of angry parents showed up demanding the release of their innocent offspring. Holly snorted. If there actually was an innocent goblin, Holly Short had yet to meet him. They were clogging up the cells now, howling gang chants and hurling fireballs at each other. Okay, so we are in a world of other kinds of beings that we understand as part of our folklore: goblins, dwarfs, leprechauns, elves, sprites, fairies. Okay, so in the world of Artemis Fowl, this is a real world that exists below our feet. It exists underground. Holly shouldered her way into the crowd. "Coming through," she grunted. "Police business." They were on her like flies on a stinkworm. "My grandpa's innocent. Police brutality. Officer, could you take my baby in his blankie? He can't sleep without it." Holly set her visor to reflect. The visor is a shield, a transparent shield that goes over your face. She sets it to reflect and ignored them all. Once upon a time, the uniform would have earned you some respect, but not anymore. Now you are a target. "Excuse me, officer, but I seem to have misplaced my jar of warts." "Pardon me, young elf, but my cat's climbed a stalactite." Or, "If you have a minute, Captain, could you tell me how to get to the Fountain of Youth?" Holly shuddered. Tourists. She had troubles of her own, more than she knew, as she was about to find out. In the police station lobby, a kleptomaniac dwarf was busy picking the pockets of everyone else in the booking line, including the officer he was handcuffed to. Kleptomaniac. It's a lovely word, and what it means is somebody who can't stop themselves from stealing. So this is a kleptomaniac dwarf, a pickpocket. Holly gave him a swipe in the backside with her buzz baton. The electric charge singed the seat of his leather trousers. Okay, so she has a baton, which is another word for a baton is a truncheon. So it's a solid, long, solid object, and it's used. I've mentioned this before, haven't I? Did we come across this reading this book? Gosh, anyway, a baton. Yes, it's the police. The police use them. It's a kind of a truncheon, but hers has got an electric charge in it, so she can give an electric shock with it. What you doing here, Mulch? Mulch started, contraband dropping from his sleeves. Started meaning he was startled, surprised. Oh, Officer Short, he whined, his face a mask of regret. I can't help myself. It's in my nature. I know that, Mulch, and it's our nature to throw you in a cell for a couple of centuries. She winked at the dwarf's arresting officer. Nice to see you're staying alert. The elf blushed, kneeling to pick up his wallet and badge. Holly forged past Root's office, hoping she would make it to her cubicle before. Short! Get in here! Holly sighed. Well, here we go again. Stowing her helmet under her arm, Holly smoothed the creases from her uniform and stepped into Commander Root's office. Root's face was purple with rage. This was more or less his general state of existence, a fact that had earned him the nickname Beetroot. There was an officer pool running on how long he had before his heart exploded. The smart money was on half a century at the outside, 50 years at the most. So clearly these beings live a long time. Commander Root was tapping the moonometer on his wrist. Well, he demanded. What time do you call this? Holly could feel her own face colouring. She was barely a minute late. There were at least a dozen officers on this shift who hadn't even reported in yet. But Root always singled her out for persecution, for picking on. End of part 1.